Wow. Look at the shock on my face. I hope you're sitting down because I have some news so stunning you might not be able to move or take any actions this turn. And statistically, some of you are already sitting. Remember to wipe and wash your hands. Are you ready? DEI jobs were actually fake and pointless all along.
That is brand new information!
A new report has come out that water is actually wet, and also large companies are dropping DEI positions, those that teach a company how to enact diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's laugh at this together, but then let's get serious and talk about why you have to bring value if you want to be successful, and I even have some concrete tips. You should use the tips of your fingers to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Got 'em! Okay, so the tech industry has been having a tough time, seeing big layoffs all through 2023. Here is a handy chart put together by TechCrunch showing a whopping 260,000 layoffs across the tech industry last year, a total higher than 2022. The big names are at the top of the list. Of course, you've got Amazon leading the way with 27,000 layoffs, Meta with 21, Google with 12, Microsoft with 11. The strange thing is that most employment data overall in America is looking good. So, what is the deal with the tech layoffs?
Not my best work.
The really easy answer is that they are overextended. And yeah, there's some AI stuff shaking up the industry. The overextension is plain to see in the layoffs of a bunch of Silicon Valley startups. Money and bored customers were flowing easily in the pandemic days, but now costs have caught up. Disposable income is disgustingly low, and some of these plucky up-and-comers just don't have what it takes to stick around. So, layoffs. But even big companies got too excited. Hey, remember Threads by Meta? That was a fun couple of days, right? A large number of layoffs in the tech industry weren't for programmers, though, which is what my mind equates to tech field, but for semiconductor businesses like Intel. It was kind of a beautiful thing to watch the graphics card market fall apart after years of high prices and nominal performance increases finally caught up with chip makers. Their inability to prevent resellers from scooping them up and gouging also hurt. You love to see it. That nominal increase thing is hitting chip manufacturers everywhere. Over the summer, I finally started making money on this channel, and I wanted something to help me do YouTube work on the go. So I started looking for workhorse tablets, and I finally settled on this sexy iPad Pro, which I need to put back now so I can see what I wrote. It pairs not at all well with this Galaxy S23. But you know what? I don't care. I'm a libertarian. I don't play by your rules, society. Punk rock!
I don't give a fuck about your war. Or your president.
Look at all these cameras though, huh? Pretty sure I just used the one, but still.
Pretty impressive.
For the record, when I say punk rock, I am referring to pop punk that was produced in the year 2002, plus or minus 6 years. During my extensive research, I discovered that popular consensus is that the Apple's new M2 chip is like using a flamethrower to light birthday candles. It sounds cool, but it's just not needed. Especially with the uses for most people, that M1 chip is just fine. Honestly, the A-series chips are still great. We're reaching a point where the chips aren't bottlenecking us like they used to, so demand isn't that great. Same thing happened with those GPUs. Is super ultra max settings with 240 frames per second and ray tracing and a draw distance of 5 miles cool? Yeah, sure. Is it needed? Probably not. Calm down, PC Master Race. Another sector hit hard is luxury stuff, like Spotify, Etsy, Nextdoor. Costs are rising, and when you're looking at your budget, you might not have that extra few bucks for a digital subscription. Or your neighbors are a hot mess and always have been, and you're just kind of bored of it. But back to the reason you clicked. This new report coming out that these companies are using the layoffs to get rid of these silly DEI departments. According to numerous sources, postings for DEI jobs were down 44% last year, and some insiders say that DEI departments have been cut up to 90%. Now, before I laugh hysterically at the people who are shocked that fake jobs aren't secure, I do want to say something positive about DEI. Yeah, seriously. In theory, and in small amounts, it is a good idea. Now, I never miss a chance to laugh at the Red Pill boys, and they have a similar problem. People will defend them, saying they call out what men are facing. And yes, they absolutely do. That is 100% correct. It's just that After they do that, they then don't offer men actual advice. They just dunk on hot chicks and go, see, these feminists, man, I tell you, body counts, am I right? High value, bro. It's the same thing with the representation craze sweeping Hollywood. There is a nugget of good idea buried under that mountain of crap. Because on a small level, we tend to gravitate to people that look like us. If you entered some kind of venue where you didn't know anyone and people were standing around in clusters, most of you would tend to gravitate toward the groups that look like you. All other things being equal and unknown, that's one thing you have that feels similar, and chances are good they're talking about a thing that you know something about. DEI is the same way. The idea that different backgrounds can help a project or make people feel comfortable is good in theory. But then what happened, Bradley?
That's when things got out of control.
The issue is twofold. One, we've put way too much emphasis on this. Anyone who tells you that representation matters zero is lying. But anyone who tells you it's like the top 3 priorities, hell, even the top 10 priorities of human interaction is also lying, or trying to sell you on the need for their CRT consultation services. Representation is like all physical things. It's a quick first impression, but drops in importance almost immediately once you start interacting with someone. The other issue is that it's impossible to implement these policies at scale without reducing people to tokens and numbers. It sounds great to say, hey, we should make sure more people feel visually represented, or we should make sure we don't have subconscious bias that would cause us to miss good candidates. But there's no way to quantify that, and one person's more people is wildly different to someone else. So you end up with policies that have hard numbers, and that only leads to classifying people only by their skin tone and privates, which is super duper icky. It leads to diversity quotas and sympathy hires. It leads to actually skipping over a qualified or helpful person because now you're still discriminating just openly and consciously instead of accidentally and subconsciously. It also groups people into monoliths by skin color. Different perspectives can lead to better outcomes, but different skin tones don't always equal different perspective. If I went to LA right now, I could find a whole host of different looking people. But if I were to ask them for a solution to a political or social problem, chances are good they all have the same answer. This is how DEI initiatives and allies tend to get a little racist.
Maybe a whole theme, like a rap rhyme.
An urban thing.
An urban, yeah. Stanley, you want to help us out with that?
So some companies need to make cuts, and it turns out that for the past 3 years, they have been hiring people to do a fake racist job, and the only contribution they bring to the company is divisive policies based on a falsely inflated problem that they can't actually allow to be solved, or they will be out of a job. Not that hard to figure out why these jobs are no longer needed when they add absolutely nothing to the company. The only thing I find shocking at all about these reports is that anyone thinks this is newsworthy. Yes, obviously your made-up job that only exists so the company doesn't get roasted on Twitter is going away. Obviously, you were destroying the morale of the office. Obviously, you were costing the company money and bringing zero value to the table. This is like a story from last year that found adding non-binary pronouns to your resume resulted in less employer attention to said resume. Thanks, Captain Obvious. The only people who don't recognize how obnoxious this whole idea is are the ones trying to sell it to us. This is an excellent reminder that companies only care about money. And if your social movement aligns with profit, great. But as soon as it doesn't, they're moving on. Make sure you keep a healthy perspective on corporations. They should only be there to meet your needs. Do not get taken in by their socially progressive or conservative stances, or them marketing a problem and just so happening to have the solution for sale. It's also a great reminder that you have to bring value to a situation if you want to stick around. In all honesty, these DEI hires are kind of like abusive boyfriends, telling the company how terrible they are and how they wouldn't be anywhere without their abuser. Finally, these companies are waking up and realizing they don't need this crap. We don't enjoy thinking about life as being transactional, but it really is. You don't keep people around you that add nothing to your relationship. Usually, when someone is a constant drain on you, a therapist will call that person toxic and recommend removing them from your life. Well, if you aren't careful, you can be that person, especially to your employer. Now, in this next part, I want to be super clear on something. You do not need to hustle all the time, and you don't need to be a millionaire by 30. There is absolutely nothing wrong with getting on with a company, going to work, Doing your job, punching in and out, working for a few decades while saving, and then retiring comfortably like a normal person. The FIRE movement does not have to be for you. But you do need to work at improving yourself and adding value to the situations that you're in or want to be in. And that includes work. A few years ago, Cracked magazine went online, and then they hired some activists and kind of went the way of Kotaku. But before that, in 2012, one guy published this great article called 6 Harsh Truths That Will Make You a Better Person, and I highly recommend it. The basic gist of it is that if you don't provide value, people don't want you. Again, it sounds icky and sterile, but it is the truth. Your company wants a product, and you have to provide it. But how can you improve yourself and provide value? Well, here are some simple ways and their results. What I like about these things is that they're not direct, saleable skills, but rather ways to improve you so you can bring more value to any situation, be it personal or professional. First, go learn another language. You know, it's almost impossible to learn a language without also learning the culture surrounding that language, giving you new perspective on the world. It works a different part of your brain muscle, which, like all the other muscles, needs activity to stay healthy. You know, other than UN translator, learning a language is not a super monetizable skill, but that is the point. It improves you as a general human being, but it can also make you attractive to employers because it shows that you're a more complex human who can tackle a project and learn something new. Also, in America, only 20% of people identify as bilingual. My suspicion is that number is a bit high because some folks have a handful of phrases and they call themselves that. But if you can hold a short conversation in a second language, you are already ahead of at least 80% of people in this country. Number 2, learn to code, but not so that you can get a dev job. We just talked about how the tech industry is laying people off. Why would I want to learn to code right now? Once again, this is not about being directly monetizable. I'm so sad to see people think that the only skills they need are the ones they can directly implement on the job. Coding changes the way that you think. It's a completely formal and logical way of approaching a task. You want to be able to say in an interview, "I'm a problem solver." Well, learning to code is problem solving. It's starting with the overall project and breaking it down into smaller pieces, then taking those and breaking them down into even smaller bits, coding for each one and connecting them. When you put them all together, what do you have? Errors, probably, but after you fix those, you have a fully functional thing, and you learn that problem solving large projects is really just solving a bunch of small problems in an organized way. Something else you learn is how to learn while doing. Not one programmer on this earth knows exactly what they're going to do and how to do it before they start the task. It's a process, and you pick things up and look things up along the way. The dirty secret is most programmers are Googling things just as much as you. C#, for example, has thousands of methods and functions. Nobody knows them all. They look up the less common ones as needed. Coding will teach you that you don't have to be an expert before you begin, and will give you the confidence to try new things while learning them at the same time. The last thing is to delve into a new subject that you skipped in school. I recommend science and philosophy, but only because I personally like them. Hey, you remember that God particle thing from a few years ago? Do you know what that is or what the collider is that helped prove it existed? Find a lecture or course. Learn it. You want to be able to discuss philosophical ideas and be super fun at parties? Do you know anything about history? How did various European countries form? Why do we use dollars? And what is the economic history of the US? Why is Shakespeare so damn popular? And what can we learn from his writings? Was he actually a woman? What are the basic tenets of various world religions? All of this not only makes you a more informed and interesting person, but it also expands your ability to learn anything at all, just like light weights lead to heavier weights. In these ways, you can be a more valuable person, and you will find more success in whatever way you choose to define that. Now, because this is YouTube, I do have affiliate links for this kind of thing in the description. Personally, I use Pimsleur courses on Audible for learning languages. I also listen to lectures, usually by the Great Courses, also on Audible. For concrete skills like coding or a musical instrument, I use Udemy. Just make sure you wait for them to have a sale, which they do often. So what are your thoughts on companies moving away from DEI jobs? I really look forward to your thoughts. And if you enjoy laughing at people who bring zero value but think they're important anyway, you might like this video about non-binary folks and their resumes. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.